I'm going to tell you the story of a guy who literally drank himself to death in his early 60s, 62 years old. It's absolutely tragic. There's no reason he should have died. He worked in the trades his whole entire life. He was actually a water well driller. He had drilled over 2,000 wells throughout this area, and he was really good at it. And I tried to help him start his own company, but in the end, he was too much of a drunk to do it. As he descended deeper and deeper into alcoholism, and I did not recognize the signs. He spent a lot of time just laying around, passed out drunk. And he was a binge drinker, and he would go on a binge that would last a week, and then he wouldn't touch alcohol again for a couple of months. And that was what was so confusing about me. But actually, I thought he wasn't drinking, but in fact, he was. He had a stash in his car, and he would come in at the end of his workday with a plastic mug with ice, and it would turns out it was loaded with vodka, and he would bring it out and top it off with Coke when he got home. And I thought he was just drinking a big thing of Coke, but it was actually a solid thing of vodka and Coke, and I had no idea. But as time went on, he started to get mean. And here is a little wave from him to me, and he knew I was taking the picture, but he did it anyway. He was just starting to get mean, and I just couldn't snap him out of it. I tried to get him to stop drinking. I took him to my doctor. I did withdrawal with him. I took him to counseling. I tried to get him involved. I did everything I could for him, but he just got mean. And when he got the drunker he got, the meaner he got. And eventually I just couldn't tolerate it anymore. And when it got so that this was my life putting up with this as a boyfriend, I finally moved out and decided I'd had enough with it. And I thought that was the end of it. But then he had an alcoholic episode about 2 months ago where he went on a 2 month binge, and he was drinking, according to his roommate, a fifth of 100 proof vodka a day. I don't know how he was able to do that, but his roommate would go and get him 5 bottles of vodka with his credit card. And then when the vodka was gone, this guy that I was dating would ask his roommate to go and get him 5 more bottles, which he would do. He was hugely enabling him. But to his credit, as the end got nearer and nearer, and Joel could no longer stand up or go to the bathroom and was just laying in his own filth, his roommate did eventually call an ambulance. They hauled him away to the emergency room, and his electrolytes were so far out of balance that he couldn't stand or do anything. So they put him in intensive care for about a week. And after intensive care, they tried to send him home, and I wouldn't stand for it. I said, no, he's not ready to go home. We need to get him into skilled nursing first. So I was able to get him into a skilled nursing facility, and he was there for about a week. And he was actually doing really well. He was taking physical therapy to correct for his weakness. He was totally off the alcohol. He had no desire to drink. And he told me that he would never drink again because he didn't want to go through what he'd been through recently again. And so I believed him. And so we started patching things up, and it looked like things were going to be okay. But then what happened next was absolutely tragic. So what happened was by the time I got him into skilled nursing, we were starting to patch things up. I was visiting him every day for hours at a time. And the last time I saw him alive was a Friday. I stayed till about 7 o'clock at night, and I left. And about 11 o'clock that night, he had a cardiac arrest just out of the blue. They called the ambulance to the skilled nursing place. Thank God he was in skilled nursing, and he would have died at home by himself. And so they got an ambulance and they took him away, and they got his heart going again. I have no idea how they did it, but by the time they got his heart going again, he had been so long without oxygen that he had significant brain damage. And so he was in intensive care. He was unconscious in a coma. And apparently, eventually, his kids decided to pull the plug, and that was the end of it. I'm still not over it. I'm still in the pissed off stage of grief where I'm really mad at him for what he did. So here he is. They had resuscitated him, but the brain damage had been done. And I had them do an MRI before I let his kids pull the plug, just so that we could be sure there was nothing going on, because I wanted to give him every chance. But they did the MRI, and it turned out there was nothing going on. So his kids eventually pulled the plug, and he died. He was an organ donor, and he did get to donate a couple of kidneys and his cornea, which is a little creepy, but if it gave somebody the gift of sight, then he would have been happy had he known. But that's what happens. So if you're drinking, knock it off. So if you can quit drinking for yourself, at least do it for your family. I know it's hard. My boyfriend never could do it. But hopefully, if you've watched this to the end and you see what you can do to your family, maybe it'll give you the strength to quit drinking.